Hi there. Hey, welcome back. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Good to be with you. Ed Ponzi here, your FX educator. On behalf of FX Street, taking a look here at Dollar Canada. But if you do have any questions or if there's anything else you'd like to take a look at, just let me know. I'm open to suggestion and always willing to take a look at anything you'd like to take a look at. Taking a look at Dollar CAD here, we were looking at this yesterday at this time. We said we wanted to buy it on the dip we were looking to buy this on the oil report. And you can see the oil report happens right about here. There's a lot of volatility on that oil report. And it looks like the price does shoot down, but it doesn't shoot down low enough to get our entry. We said the price might shoot one direction and then turn and go the other way. We wanted the price to come down and then go up. It did exactly that, but it didn't come down low enough to catch our entry. Our entry was 132.45. The price shot down to 132.80. So it missed our entry by about 35, it looks like. And, you can't just judge these because the price wasn't that high when we were talking about it. It drifted higher after we signed off and then came back down after when the report hit. So that's one of the things, if we had been able to stick here with you all morning, which isn't really feasible, but if I'd been able to stay here on here with you all morning, let's say, and it's not possible for me to do that, but if I had, then I would have probably changed everything to adjust for that drift because we began to drift higher after I signed off, and so that I might have adjusted everything because of that. But it does that sort of round trip. We shot downward. You can see that big red candle here. That big red candle comes right at 10:30. That's exactly the timing of the energy report. So dollar CAD shoots down and then pulls the big reversal. This is exactly the type of thing that we were talking about. The reversal. Very, very common during the energy report. And, we didn't know which way the price was going to go. But whether the price goes up or down, it tends to reverse. That's not every time. Not every time. But let's just say I would say more than 50% of the time there's a significant reversal. This was a very significant reversal. Dollar Canada dropped about 25 pips and then jumped about 60 pips. That's really that's the idea in a nutshell, was that we wanted it to dip and then go higher, but it just didn't dip to the area where we wanted to buy it. Anyway. Interesting anniversary, right? It's been 1 year since the European Union Brexit vote, their EU referendum. So we'll take a look at that and a few other things in a minute. So what to do with this now anyway on Dollar Canada? It's drifting lower now. We're back. We got jumped well above 133. We just started to drift below it again. And part of the reason why we're bullish on Dollar Canada is because oil continues to drop. There you see, we're kind of bullish on this mainly because the price of oil, it just continues to fall. All right, and you can see it's just been brutal. We're under 43 now. So every time we look at this, it seems to be a dollar lower, right? And another red candle and another dollar lower on the price of oil. And you begin to wonder, is it more than just a supply issue? Is it a demand issue? Which would be very bad news. that would seem to contradict what all these central banks are saying about, raising interest rates. If you're raising interest rates, that means you have a, strong economy, or economies are strengthening. You expect them to strengthen down the road. And if it's a demand issue, if you have weakening demand for oil, that means you have weaker economies down the road. So it would seem to be a contradiction. But, is it pure supply, or is demand part of the equation? Let's take a look and take a peek at yesterday's report, see what it had to say about supply. And if we take a look at the crude oil inventory report, here it is. Very close to the expectation. They were looking for a shortage of 2.1 million barrels. They got a shortage of 2.45 million barrels, less a drawdown. That's pretty close to expectations. Really shouldn't be a big market mover. But it's the momentum, it's the downside momentum, it seems, that is just carrying this downward. And plus, you have all of this tension in the Middle East right now. And, these different countries were cooperating quite nicely with each other, but now they're kind of at each other's throats with Qatar, whatever. In the center of it, you also have tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran, apparently, are a little bit of tension there as well. So tension in the Middle East, who would have guessed, right? So anyway, these countries are at each other's throats, and I think that makes it a little bit more likely for them to increase supply. Just pump a little extra, say the heck with these agreements. We're going to just pump away. All right, so here you see maybe more oil coming on the market, pressing the price downward. All right, it's just, and that's just bad news for Canadian dollar, even though their economy is improving. So we miss our trade on dollar CAD. We miss our little entry there. So but there will be other trades, right? We take these numbers out and hope for a pullback. We have a nice red candle happening right now. So looking for a pullback, and we'll be a buyer. My bias is toward going long dollar Canada right now. Let's take a look at British pound, because I want to take you back. It was 1 year ago, that huge red 1700 pip candle occurs actually on the 24th is that big red candle. So today's the 22nd. 24th is going to be on Saturday. So it's been almost 1 year since the EU referendum and the aftermath of the EU referendum. Still flying the EU flag on my car, says Richard Tyler. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not over there. I really don't know the ins and outs of it. Just as an outsider, it's fascinating watching history being made from across the pond here. I really have no idea, what it must be like over there. I can only imagine. And not really being part of the everyday situation there. It's all kind of a mystery to me. I live next to Toyota. Okay, so I imagine that's going to be affected by this. And Rolls-Royce, right? RR? Rolls-Royce RR? Well, won't the UK strike a separate deal with Toyota now that if the UK leaves the EU, won't they be able to strike their own separate deal? So it's fascinating. The European Union is about to start this negotiation with the UK. Nobody knows how long this is going to take, or what the final outcome is going to be. And So right now we're underneath our sort of line of demarcation here. This red line just under 128. It's actually 127.85. Under that level, I'm pretty bearish, and we actually used that to place a trade. We were leaning against that at 128. Anything under that red line, I'm bearish on British pound and shorting rallies. So right now I'm bearish on pound. If pound can climb above that red line, I'm bullish. Or above 128, actually, I'm bullish. But right now I'm bearish on pound. And so looking for overbought rallies, but it hasn't really been able to rally in a meaningful way. It just seems like things happen so quickly lately. Over in the UK, like the political situation is changing so fast. So I just try not to worry about it, and I just try to trade this chart. To me, I'm not comfortable shorting it here because we're not overbought on the hourly, not even close. And I'd much rather short it again closer to 128. And we're way down, we're below 127. Now I feel like I'm getting greedy if I try to reshort it down here. You can see what happened. It very quickly drops through both targets and then just keeps going, which makes me think, well, now whenever that happens, you're always going to second guess yourself and say, my targets weren't far enough away. Look, you're not clairvoyant. I'm not clairvoyant. Nobody knew this was going to happen this way, right? So there's a tendency to say, I should have done this, I should have done that. My target should have been farther away. I should have used a third target. There's no way that anyone could have, you can't predict the future, okay? We're not psychic. So don't kick yourself too hard, especially, look, if the trade works out, the trade works out. Don't kick yourself that you should have gotten more out of it. You can't have known. And so we do get a nice rebound here. But as I go to the 60-minute, I'm fairly certain that it's just not enough of a rebound to get an overbought bounce on the 60-minute. And that's where that's kind of where I live. Now, I'm sure on a 5-minute you could have gotten an overbought bounce, but to me it's too easy. That's too easy. That's too low of a standard. Like there's a nice bounce right here, but if I go to RSI, you can see that it's not enough to create an overbought reading. So we don't get a sell signal, right? And therefore we can't get short. It's not enough. And so in fact, it's not been overbought since here. Right here at 128, there was the sell signal right here. Right, so we can't get short yet. And I'm not so much worried about the price, but here at 127, it popped up to 127, but it's just not high enough to sell. It's not overbought enough to sell. Let's put it that way. It's not so much the price, but it's the fact that it's not overbought. So it's saying, Ed, be patient, wait. Maybe it comes up again. Maybe it comes up a bit more. I don't know if it comes. It doesn't necessarily have to come all the way up to 128. It just has to be overbought or come up to 128 or both. Because 128 by itself is very clearly resistance. Can we see that? So if it comes up to 128, I don't feel that it needs to be overbought at 128 because it's hit once, twice, thrice, 4 times at 128 and dropped 4 times. There's clearly somebody selling at 128 in quantity. They may still have more to sell. It's what we call working the order, okay? if you have a very large order at an institution, you can't simply hit the sell at market button because you'll mash the price down. So this is a limit order. It must be a limit order, or so that limit order may not be completely filled. Who knows? Right. So I would say if it comes to 128, I do not feel that it needs to be overbought according to RSI in order to sell. On the other hand, if it comes to 128 and it's overbought at the same time, so much the better. If it does not come to 128 and it's oversold according to RSI, I can sell, and that would be fine as well. Are there any other resistance areas on here that look like they might be sellable? Well, I see this little area right here, and that looks kind of tempting, but I'm also looking at the time of day that this was formed, right? And so I want to take that into account also. I don't know if you can see the time. You see how the price begins to drift right about here? Check out the time. 1500 New York. That's 3 p.m. New York. That's 8 p.m. London. We're notoriously going into a very dead time of day here, like a dead spot. When it's 8 p.m. London, all the London traders have gone home, and it's 3 p.m. New York, all the New York traders are about to go home. So we're just going into a very dead area right here. Okay? And so the London traders have gone home, and the price is going sideways until right here it says 4 a.m. That's 4 a.m. New York. That's 9 a.m. London. So it went sideways until the London traders woke up and smashed it down. So to me, this is not do you understand why I'm saying that? This is not a significant area, because this happened while the London traders, the European traders, were out of the game. We're completely out of the game. And I would say that the American traders, for the most part, were out of the game also. Okay? This drift begins at 8 p.m. London time and ends at 9 a.m. London time. It also begins at 3 p.m. New York time and ends at 4 a.m. New York time. So the New York and the London markets are not involved in this area of time. And as soon as London woke up, boom, everything started to move again. So I don't put that much significance on this. I'm not going to really use this as a level. Does that make sense? Or if I do use it as a level, I will put less significance on it because I know that it's only really, might not be as much volume, right? They say 1/3 of all the volume comes out of London and 20% of all the volume comes out of New York. And we know London and New York are not involved in this area. So I might, even if I do decide to use it, I just won't put as much significance on it. Okay? Fair enough. Whereas this area here, I might take a little bit more seriously. This area that's forming in here, I might take a little bit more seriously. All right, if it comes into play later. All right, but the 128 area is much more important. Okay. All right, so nothing to do on the pound right now. But here we are. It's just about the 1-year anniversary. I'll never forget that night. 1,700 pips on that night. Probably the most interesting thing about that night to me, from my perspective as a neutral observer, was the fact that They somehow managed to make it touch 150 before it plunged. Just in case there were orders at 150, they somehow managed to make it hit 150 before it dropped. And which just goes to show you, banks and brokers make money when orders are filled. So if there were any orders at 150, those orders were filled. And it's important to understand that's what motivates banks and brokers. They don't care, I've met so many traders over the years who seem to think that, the market maker is out to get me. And honestly, this is such a big market and it's such a big world and it's such a huge, it's a $5 trillion a day market. I doubt if anyone really cares about, individual accounts of Forex traders. But what matters to banks and brokers, like a big bank or a big broker, is getting their client orders filled and collecting those big commissions on those orders. Doesn't matter who wins or loses. In fact, there are no winners and losers in most Forex transactions. This is really important to understand. About 80, maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of all the transactions, there is no winner or loser. Company ABC needs Japanese yen because they're buying a Japanese company. So who loses on that transaction? Who wins on that transaction? Nobody. They just need yen, whether they're a European company, a British company, a U.S. company. They need yen today to buy a Japanese company. There's no winner or loser. They need to obtain yen. And the company who fills that order gets a big commission. And that's all they care about, right? And this is why it's a $5 trillion a day market, right? And, a company in the U.S. needs euros today because they're buying, electronic components from a German company, right? Who wins or loses on that Forex transaction? Nobody. They just need euros today. That's all. Right? So those are the type of orders that I'm talking about. And if there were any orders for British pound at 150, they made darn sure they got filled. That big spike up there barely kisses 150. And what a night that was with the British pound US dollar currency pair whipping around at about, I think the ATR was probably, the 5-minute ATR, I think, was 300. I think it was moving 300 pips every 5 minutes. Not something I will soon forget. Let's take a look at the economic calendar here to see if we have anything coming up in the next few minutes. Jobless claims in 3 minutes and housing price index in 33 minutes. We have retail sales for Canada in 3 minutes, and ex-autos retail sales in 3 minutes for Canada as well. Let's take a look at Aussie yen on the daily. Exponential. Finally got the entry on Aussie yen. Finally hits the 10-day moving average. Just missed it yesterday. It would have been a really nice entry. Today gets the entry at 83.82. Currently at 83.86. So far a profit of 4 pips. Woohoo! Don't spend it all in one place. So the long trade is on. The short trade, I'll just move all the short trade numbers over to the side. We have a long setup and a short setup. Let's knock the RSI out of here. The ATR is 74. So half of 74 is, my mind draws a blank. Half of 70 is 35, and half of 4 is 2, so 37 pips below the entry, right? The entry is 83.82. So I just need to know 82 minus 37. 82 minus 37.
It's 45.
Okay. 83.45 becomes the stop. So the entry is the moving average. The moving average is 83.82. Boom. There we go. We've got ourselves a long position in Aussie yen. GBP still has a good chance of testing 124.70 area. Well, let's take a peek. Yeah, now I see a lot of support first coming in right here at about 125.50. Do you see that? Do you see what I see here? Lots of this used to be resistance, so it should act as support at 125.50. I could be wrong, but I think you got to get through that first. Of course, all heck could break loose on this thing. One cool thing about it is it's volatile. Twice as volatile as the euro, which has become a real snoozer of late. All right. And by the way, we're just going to, that Aussie yen trade, just as a caveat, there's no target. We're just going to trail the stop on that, for those of you who are not familiar with that technique. That's an FXed trade. We're just going to enter, place the stop, and trail the stop. But yeah, I'm not saying that you're wrong, Carlos. I definitely respect your opinion, and you've knocked it out of the park on here numerous times. So, not saying that you're wrong at all, but I'm just saying this looks like we've got a formidable area to get through first, is all I'm saying. But as far as 124.70, let's take a peek. See, that looks like a place where if I were long, like let's say if it comes down to here, this is a potential place to buy with all this support here. 124.70 looks like an interesting place to put a stop, to get it under this area, to get it underneath these candles here. Could be. Anyway, we're running out of time here. We can revisit this. Carlos is looking at the longer term, of course. Okay, well, we're about out of time on this one. We'll have to revisit this one later. Jobless claims up to 241,000, very close to the estimate. So, all right, I'm going to bounce out of here for this one. We'll be back in 30 minutes to pick it up again. Sorry, I don't have time for that one right now, Carlos. Let me bounce out of here, and I'll see you all back here in about 30 minutes. Okay? Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for participating. I really appreciate it. I'll see you back here very, very soon. My name's Ed Ponzi. Thank you for listening.